I'm Big Don Luca, smoke you like my hookah. Pump fake right, then I step back in illusion. That's a boss move maneuver, billionaire entrepreneur. Mark Cuban on the viewer, put you rookies on a skewer. I stay shitting on you boys like I came up from the sewer. Used to have a lot of dollars, now I got a lot fewer. What you saying to me? I hope you save it for me. I'm about to kill the game, and I put it in my testimony.
Hi, welcome to the Mainstream Mavs podcast. This is your host, Will. I'm joined here by my co-host, Jaron.
What is up, guys?
Today, we are joined here with Chris, or as you guys probably popularly know him as, Fire Jason Kidd or Fire Mark Cuban in all caps on Twitter as his profile name. You guys may know him on that. You may have seen him at games this year. You may have heard the buzz kind of going around with him. These guys had some run-ins with security at the AAC. He's got a lot of cool stories from this season, though. And despite some of the things that he's encountered with the AAC security staff, he's been a respectful guy in all aspects of going to these games. And, you know, we had a chance to talk to him beforehand. It was a pretty glowing conversation. And, you know, we wanted to do more of a little lighthearted episode before we knock out some of these player profiles. And we thought, you know, who better to bring on the Mainstream Mavs podcast, let a guy really get to tell his story. He had a crazy story at the end of the year that involved Mark Followell, Slovenians, a lot of other stuff. He's been an NBA sort of aficionado since, the 90s. He's been going to games, but he recently became a Mavs fan, and it's a really cool interview. We got a lot of cool digs that you guys are going to be hearing in this one. Did you want to speak to any of the stuff that the Mainstream Mavs listeners are about to hear when they listen to this podcast, Jaron?
Yeah, I figured we'd put on a little lighthearted episode for the fans here. One, that might get us just feeling a little bit better about this abysmal season, but it was definitely some cool stories. Had some run-ins with officials and also just some run-ins with, team security and, of course, the AAC security. And, of course, that story with Mark Followell, I'm hoping he's going to get into that a little bit more, but that was a really cool story as he had some, good few-day run-ins with some Slovenians during that Chicago game, which was, of course, Slovenian night. And, of course, Mark Followell followed him along with it. So I think it was just some good lighthearted stories, something to, curate going into this off season. And it was definitely a fun conversation to have.
Yes, well, Mr. Fire Mark Cuban, even though Mark Cuban is the owner, a.k.a. Chris, he is going to be joining us here for this interview, of course. But before he does that, here's an ad from our sponsor, Spotify for Podcasters. All right, guys, we are back. We are joined here with Chris, a.k.a. Fire Jason Kidd / Fire Mark Cuban. Chris, what is up, man?
What's going on, fellas? Thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate it. Love to just share some stories, man, and some fun Mavs stuff. So really excited to be on with you guys, man, for real.
Yeah, no, most definitely, man. We're excited to have you here. So first off, Chris, for those of you that don't know, Chris actually didn't become a Mavs fan until very recently. Chris, how did you become a Mavs fan? Because you moved over from the West Coast a while back. How did that process kind of unfold?
Yeah, so almost 2 years ago, my wife and I, with my mother-in-law and my two kids, we all were part of a mass exodus out of California, like so many, right? We thought we caught the last boat out of town, but it's still a lot of people coming from California. So we were part of that movement coming over. And I grew up on Kobe, Shaq, Lakers at Staples Center. Like, that's when I started going to NBA games when I was in my 20s, probably like 1999. Around then, 98, 99, started going to like Kobe, Shaq, Laker games, and would probably go to like 5-10 games a year during that stretch. And just fell in love with seeing NBA live and cheering for your team and seeing all the different teams come to town and stuff. So just developed like a deep love for NBA basketball. So when we came out to Texas, right, there was a lot going on in life. I wasn't necessarily thinking about what am I going to do to consume NBA when I get to Texas. So we were actually here already when I was like, oh shit, what am I going to do to consume NBA basketball in Texas? And I was like, oh, the Mavericks. And I was like, oh shit, Luka's in his prime right now. Wow, I could see Luka play and I could see a bunch of teams come to town. Still not even considering myself a Mavs fan at this point, right? Like we just got to town.
Right.
So go on the Mavs website to see like, let me see what's up on like a 10-game package, right? Let me see what they got going on. So went on the Mavs website, filled out a form on there, basically just to get more information. Somebody reaches out to me and says, hey, we do this really cool thing called Pick Your Seat Day, where bring you, your family, whoever you want to bring, and you can walk around the arena and you can see what seats are available, what packages are available, right? And I was like, oh, that's awesome. Didn't have any pricing yet. So we get there, my wife, me, my two little ones at the time were probably 6 and 4, my son and my daughter, and they let us go on the court. They let us run around down there. My kids were running and flipping up the seats courtside and like pretending like they were shooting hoops. And we were just had a great time. And I saw the prices for Dallas Mavericks basketball. And I was just coming from Southern California. And granted, I only had season tickets once and had to split it with 3 other people and couldn't do it the next year in Southern California. So it's not like I come from a long line of having season tickets or anything like that. But I'm just telling you that Lakers tickets for the season are probably right around 3.5 to 4x what they are for Mavericks. So I was stunned by how much value it looked like there was to me. So I ended up doing a whole season, which I had no intention of doing a whole season. Still not a Mavs fan, right? Go to the first preseason game with my son, who's again 4 at the time. We're sitting in our seats, and the first basket the Mavs score, I'm like, well, shit, if we're coming to games, like I'm gonna be cheering for the home team, right? Like, so I just looked at my son and I was like, I guess I'm a Mavs fan. Like, I guess we're Mavs fans, buddy. And at halftime, we went and bought some stuff on clearance down in the hangar, like the gift shop at the Mavs game. And since then, just been a Mavs fan and just been enjoying NBA basketball. And I will tell you the first preseason game, I kind of forgot JB. Like, some people could call me a casual before I got to Dallas. Just I wasn't paying as much attention to the NBA. You know what I'm saying? Like, people get older. I got 2 kids. I'm in my 40s. Like, I didn't know everything that was going on in the league. But the first preseason game, JB, and I know that's a tough subject right now, Jalen Brunson, with a lot of people, right? But JB made a basket in the preseason game, and I just instinct, I just said baller. As soon as he made his first shot, I just went baller. And like, that was a thing I did with JB the whole time. I'm not yelling it, but just to me, watching the game, just like baller, right? And I remembered his time at Villanova because I was watching more college basketball back then. And I remember just being like, damn, JB's a leader, like a dude you would love to have in your locker room. And he's just a flat out baller. Okay. I didn't know about his struggles against the Clippers and why some people didn't think he was the guy. I didn't know much about his NBA journey, but I saw him make 1 basket in preseason, immediately remembered him from Villanova and was like, oh, that's right. I have seen him on the Mavericks, watching some Clippers, playoff games and stuff. But gosh, we won't get into that, man. But just like the eyeball test tells you that JB is a baller and a dude that you want on your team. 100%, so 100%. That's how we became Mavs fans right there.
Yeah.
Nah, so real quick, just like a question out of curiosity, like how different, I guess, is like the market space or just like the game atmosphere compared to like Laker games and Mavericks games? Because I know, the pricing of it, you just said, is much different. Like, I do know that there's a huge media surrounding around the Lakers. Like, that's obvious. Like, just being a fan or a former fan of the Lakers, like what's kind of the difference of like Los Angeles and Dallas?
Well, like, one of the things I think that I've noticed about Dallas, and part of it is the reaction that I've gotten going to games and kind of my bit and my crazy energy sometimes, man, gets me in trouble a little bit here in Dallas, where like in LA, that wasn't really like, I mean, I went wild at some Lakers games for years growing up there and just having fun. I mean, like, not everybody likes the bit, but like, I just have a ton of fun at games, right? So like that's my energy. I'm not trying to disrupt anything. I'm just there to enjoy NBA basketball and just have a good time, right? So like that's the energy I'm on. And sometimes it comes with yelling stuff that I think is funny or like amuses me, right? But like the reaction is different here a little bit to some of that stuff. And then I think here, the way that the media seems to let Mark Cuban, Nico Harrison, and Jason Kidd completely off the hook, right? Like if this was a big market, these guys would be getting crucified. Like every day they would be getting hammered out here. The questions that they're going to get asked in a bigger market are like follow-up questions, right? Like, hey, wait a second, that question didn't make sense. I'm calling you on that because I'm a journalist and I'm a reporter and you're bullshitting, but like doing it in a professional way, I guess, right? Like there's a certain level of accountability that is just different here, where it just seems like it's a free pass. Maybe 2011 covers all sins, right? And it's just like there's so much goodwill built up for Mark Cuban and Jason Kidd that I think overall, like the Dallas media is just so soft on those guys and not willing to kind of be tough with them, which I'm not used to in the market that I grew up in, you know?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, conversely, like there are some times that, some of the fans would argue that it actually works out good. Like, with the whole Kyrie situation, everybody is like clamoring for all the Dallas media guys to not ask certain questions and all this. But I mean, at the end of the day, if we're looking back just these last few years, really ever since the championship, there definitely has been a maybe just a certain sort of like yielding from some of these journalists where they're kind of holding themselves back. And you can kind of tell at times, but besides that, you kind of talked about some of the just crazy game experiences you've had and the amount of fun you like to have at some of these games. What would you say is one of your crazier experiences at a game? I guess we can go before the Mavericks and since you've been a Mavericks fan.
Okay, so this one is one I don't get to share that often. It's probably been a while since I told this one. I actually tried to tell it to somebody today, but just it didn't end up happening. A long story, I went to a 97-1 The Freak thing that was 10 minutes from my house this morning. These two guys were doing a draft show. So I went up there and hung out, and I was about to tell somebody the story and didn't get the chance to.
Hey,
so
well,
I'm actually glad that I get to tell you guys here.
Yes,
so
sir.
This is like 2002, right? And I had this little hustle where I could find tickets for Laker games like 2-3 days before the game. Some tickets would get released on Ticketmaster, usually not great seats, sometimes maybe like behind a basket in the lower bowl. And by the way, Staples Center, which will always call it that, whatever it's called now with the crypto, but to me it's always Staples Center, is almost a carbon copy of American Airlines Center as far as how it's set up, right? So like almost exact. So I would go to usually up in the 300s, right? That's where I'm at. That's where I was born at, up in the 300s with the real fans up there, 20 years old, not able to get tickets, maybe in closer sections.
Just like
so
us.
I could find like 4 tickets up in the 300s. I could buy them on Ticketmaster, and then I could sell them for like 3-4x in a one-day eBay auction. And so I would flip tickets, maybe it happened 10-12 times a year where I could get tickets and then resell them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would try to get a ticket for me and one of my other friends that's normally broke like I was back then, right? And try to go to a game with somebody. Sometimes would end up at the games by myself. But this particular day, the Lakers were playing the Dallas Mavericks, which is another reason I love this story, man. So they had Juwan Howard, Sean Bradley, Eduardo Nahara. They had Dirk, right? Because it's like 2002, right? So Dirk was definitely on that team.
Yeah.
I found a single ticket on Ticketmaster like 2 days before the game, literally 2 rows right behind the Mavericks bench. And I just could not believe it. And I found a single ticket up in the 300s for my buddy Drew. Shout out Drew Down. That's my buddy right there, man. We've been through some stuff at some NBA games. So he went with me. He had binoculars with him. He goes to his seat in the 300s. I go down. I've never been this close to the floor ever. And like, I'm seeing Shaq up close. I'm seeing Sean Bradley. Like, it's blowing my mind. But I'm also already on having fun at games and being vocal, even though, again, I'm probably maybe 23 at this time.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked at the Mavericks roster and was like, who can I give shit to? Right.
Yeah.
And again, you'll see that maybe it crosses the line a little bit, but like, I don't know. There was a video that came out tonight where a fan was getting into it with Russell Westbrook. You see some of these fans recently that have been arguing with like LeBron or like talking nasty shit to Kyrie. Like, I'm not on that type of energy, right?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like what I do is in a completely different lane than the guy that's like, you suck, and saying stuff about people's families and just like crossing the line and getting personal and like really mean spirited. I don't think I do that at all. I think I do something that's funny. Most people enjoy it. Sometimes it's a little bit aggressive. Okay. So
Yeah.
that's my disclaimer. So 2 rows right behind the Mavs bench. And I look at the roster and I'm like, who can I give shit to? And I see Juwan Howard. And I'm like, dude, Juwan Howard, I think he signed like a 4-year, 120, some big contract back then. I don't know exactly what it was, but I remember being like, he's not even playing. Like, he's just sitting the bench with that big ass contract. I'm gonna say overpaid, no talent, right? I don't know where it came from, but I was like, I'm gonna chant that shit. Yes, you can make an argument that's kind of being a dick, right? But like, that's so much fun for me to do that and just have fun and say some stupid shit and just go and have a crazy experience. And that's how I like to enjoy myself. So I get down there early on when it's quiet. I don't have to yell loud. They're like 10 feet away. And I'm like, Juwan Howard, overpaid, no talent. And he's looking back at me. And so like, I probably did it 1 or 2 times a quarter throughout the game. Like, I'm not doing it all the time, but maybe once or twice a quarter, I'm doing it. Right. So halftime comes and I see that in the row behind me is Fred Couples, the golfer.
Yeah.
You guys might be too young to know who Fred Couples is, but back in 2002, Fred Couples was balling, right? Like,
Yeah.
people knew who he was. This game was in like March, so the Masters is coming up in April, right? So it's halftime. I get out of my seat and I just walk into his row and just walk up to him. I don't really say anything and probably till I get close. So he's kind of looking at me like, what the hell is this guy doing? Because he's heard me having fun with Juwan Howard. And I just walk up and shake his hand and I'm like, hey man, really nice to meet you. Good luck at the Masters. Like, hey, I'm a big fan, you know? So get to meet golfer Fred Couples. Then I go hang out with my buddy Drew. Remember, Drew's up in the 300 section with some binoculars.
Yeah.
And I meet up with him and he says, bro, I met all these people in the section. We're looking at you with the binoculars. Like, and it was such a good seat. And he was such a good friend of mine. I said, bro, you have to sit there for the 3rd quarter. Like, you have to experience that. I said, but dude, I've been giving Juwan Howard shit. I was messing with Eduardo Nahara, but I just made him laugh. I was going, Nahara. And he was kind of chuckling. One time, Sean Bradley was taking up 2 seats. And I was like, and Eduardo Nahara was trying to sit down and he was looking. And I was like, Bradley, give the man a seat. You know, and they both looked at me and laughed, and Sean Bradley moved over. So like, I'm having so much fun. I got to let Drew sit in the seat for the 3rd quarter, but I tell him, you have to give Juwan Howard shit. That's the only caveat. If I let you sit there, you have to keep it going. So I get up there. I see all the guys that he met, and we're up there partying, high-fiving. I get the binoculars, and I look at Drew, and this fool is just sitting in his seat, just jaw on the floor. The whole 3rd quarter. The whole 3rd quarter, didn't say a word to anybody. And I meet up with him after the 3rd quarter, and I was like, bro, I could see you with the binoculars. You weren't saying shit, right? So I go back down for the 4th quarter, and I watch the rest of the game. The Lakers win. I don't remember anybody's stat line, But I do remember Juwan Howard when they were getting their stuff, and it's the game's over, and I'm still like, I give him one more. Overpaid, no talent. And he starts doing this, scratching his head, man, and just all at me for like 10 seconds. And security didn't say shit to me. They knew that, like, I don't think that anybody there thought I was being malicious or like, you could probably say that's disrespectful. You could make an argument, but I don't think it's against any fan conduct rules. And for me, it comes from a good place of just having fun. I don't got nothing against Juwan Howard. He just happened to be the dude on the roster that I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna give him a hard time today. Right. And just went and had a bunch of fun, man. So that's one of my best memories, being at Staples Center back during that era, you know, of the Kobe Shaq. I got some other stuff with Kobe Gasol later, being able to see that come through and seeing Kobe hit a game winner. This was New Year's Day 2010. I'm up in the 300s and on some homemade weed brownies, right? That tasted terrible, but did the job. And I'm up there with somebody, and it was her first Laker game ever. And the Lakers are down by like 20 in the third quarter. And I just said, hey, they do this all the time. Kobe will bring them back. Like, Lakers got this. Almost like that, they start playing better. They come back down by 2. Barely leaves his fingertips. 3-pointer at the buzzer. Kobe all net. The place goes absolutely crazy. And like, just everybody's losing their mind and just like some bucket list shit. I saw Kobe drop a 3 at the buzzer, and I saw Luka do it against the Celtics, and it gave me flashbacks. Last season, my first year with tickets, when Luka hit that, man, I just had flashbacks of the place just absolutely erupting. So that's just, God, I love NBA basketball, and I got so many good, fun memories, man.
Yeah, no, those are some crazy stories to say the least, man. But I mean, I think in regards to, you know, the whole thing with you kind of, you know, really being able to distinguish the line between, you know, is this too much for me to do as a fan? Is this, you know, going over or breaching the sort of players circle? You know, I do think, you know, with that, how much publicity that's got nowadays, that's obviously kind of an important thing that we definitely, you know, try to, you know, respect these guys' personal lives, you know, don't get at them for stupid shit and things like that. But I mean, I see, like, from all the things you've told me, man, you really haven't done anything malicious at these games. Heckling, you know, versus actually personally attacking is a huge distinction. And I mean, I think you stayed on the safe side of that, man. So, I mean,
it's a fine line.
Yeah,
it's a fine line. And I feel like it may not seem like it, but I feel like I have a decent amount of self-awareness, right? And I do understand that not everybody likes the energy when I yell loudly at a game, fire Mark Cuban. Like, I've been going to NBA games, like I said, for almost 25 years. I know right where that line is at and what is allowed and what isn't. You know, it's not like I studied the code of conduct, but I understand if I'm not cussing, if I'm not like personally attacking somebody and like being like malicious or like mean spirited, like, if I'm not doing that, then they really, I think, are going to let me get away with some stuff. I'm actually, again, it may not seem like it, but I feel like I'm actually respectful of the people in my section because I understand that they're there to have an experience, right? I'm not trying to ruin other people's experience just so I can yell some stupid shit, right? Like, I enjoy it so much. And usually the people in my section, for the most part, laugh. People come up and high five me sometimes. And it's just like, we're there having a good time, enjoying an NBA game. We're talking a little shit. The team deserves for us to talk a little shit, right? And like, at a certain point, like, I'm just going to give it to you if you're the home team and this is what you've done for the last 2 years. Like, I want my voice to be heard, and I express it differently than some people. Other people don't express it the same way, and that's okay. Like, I don't mind what other people do. I don't think I'm doing anything that is ruining people's good time, right? So like, for me, it's just about having a fun experience. And then the Mavericks deserve to have some people loud and vocal about what they've done the last year, really.
I think
But
that's irrefutable for sure. So, I mean, just kind of going hand in hand with that, you obviously got the Fire Jason Kidd shirt on right now, repping it out here. And, we got the sign in the background. This is your whole prerogative. This is kind of how you got your sort of notoriety on Mavs Twitter. How did the movement start? And what do we have any future plans for the movement? It turned into the Fire Mark Cuban movement, of course, and you've been at games. How has it started, and how has the movement gone this
right.
season?
Okay. So this is a lot of fun for me too, man, because last season became a Mavs fan, started going to games, enjoying it. And when I will tell you this, the first regular season game, okay? I'm a Mavs fan at this point. I got my gear. I'm all in, right? The first game of the regular season, they got blown out by almost 30 on the road by the Atlanta Hawks. And I called my buddy. We're talking, and I said, dude, Jay Kidd is not the guy.
This is Jason Kidd's first season as coach.
You cannot lose by 30. Like, that's, I'm not saying you have to win the game or like you're done. But to lose in that fashion, your first game with your troops, like, and I just was like, dude, there's no way. There's absolutely no way that you lose by 30 to the Hawks and you're the guy. Having not really known a whole lot about what happened in Milwaukee, wasn't paying enough attention at the time to be like that deep and to see what was happening with coaches in Milwaukee, as far as my fandom at the time, but just was like, there's no way that he can be the guy. So in December last year, they were 16-18 going into like the start of at some point in December last year, there were 16 wins, 18 losses, right? And I went to the game with my cousin Tyler from Springfield, Missouri. Shout out Tyler. Me and him raged for a couple of days, man, while he was out here going to games. He was out here for like 2 weeks, and we went to like 3 or 4 games and had some wild times. This night, they were down by like 15 to the Pelicans. I think had lost to the Pelicans a couple of games before. And this is like when they're at their worst of last season, right? So fourth quarter, we sneak down to the 7th row on the other side of where the benches are at. So like where they come out of the tunnel and then go into the tunnel, we're like more over there. And we get into the 7th row. It's like, I want to say it's like section 107 maybe that we snuck down to. And I used to have a cool little thing where I could sneak around, and I had like this whole system that, I'd be happy to give to somebody else. But now that they know who I am, I can't really get away with, it's a beautiful system on how to find yourself in lower seats, right? My season seats are good though, don't get me wrong, but sometimes you want to explore and move around a little bit, especially when you see tons of empty seats. That's, so some of these fourth quarters. So anyways, we get down there. I'm having a good time. And fourth quarter, I think maybe I did. I stood up and yelled, "Fire Jason Kidd." And it was like the first time that I yelled something that loud at a Mavs game, right? And then just sat back down. A couple people laughed. Nobody really cared. They're getting blown out by the Pelicans. They're under 500, right? Nobody cares. And then I just thought to myself, fire Mark Cuban. And it just struck me funny, right? It struck me funny because he's the owner and you can't fire the owner, right? So I know people like to tell me that. And that's part of the reason I love it so much, is that people always try to tell me that you can't fire the owner, okay? I know that. That's why I thought of it. That's why I thought it was clever. And that's why I yelled it at this game in December, right? Fire Mark Cuban. And just thought it was funny, whatever, sat back down. There was no real reaction, except for then this guy behind me, probably, I don't know, mid-20s. He's with 3 other people. They're probably all in their mid-20s. And, like a nicer shirt, trying to paint the picture. I don't know, a little stuffier maybe, right? And he was like, hey, buddy, I'm pretty sure you can't fire the owner, right? And I was like, holy shit, it's funnier than I thought. Like, to get that real reaction, right? So I yelled it maybe 1, maybe 2 more times, right? So maybe 2 or 3 times during the fourth quarter, yelled fire Mark Cuban. And every time this guy was snickering to his buddies, like, dude, he's the owner, bro. You can't fire the owner. And like, that shit to me was so funny that if it wasn't for that guy's reaction, I don't think I would have done it as much as I did. Right.
Yeah.
That shit was just so funny to me. Right. So that game, though, as the players are coming off the court, Luka was playing like shit then. And I was probably too new of a Mavs fan to do this to Luka. I said I wasn't gonna have any Luka slander on the podcast tonight, right? I told a guy on Twitter, no Luka slander tonight. But he was playing like shit. He obviously wasn't giving an effort. This is when people thought he was still overweight.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
again, the eyeball test tells you sometimes like, dude ain't giving his best effort right now. You know what I mean? And so it happened in this game. He's coming off the court, and I said, I need better, Luka. That's not good enough. I need better. Right? He doesn't even flinch. He's walking. And then J Kid's coming off the court. And like they for sure hear me based on where we're at and how much the noise level is low. Right?
Yeah.
Like 1,000% they hear me. And J Kid walks by and I said, that's not good enough, coach. That is not good enough. Like super loud. He hears me. And I was just like, oh shit, that was so much fun. They deserve it, right? And they both responded starting in January, didn't they? And the Mavs went on a magical run. Some would say there were some other factors, but you know, sometimes maybe yelling and being like, that shit's not good enough. I need better. You know, maybe I helped turn the Mavs season around. And I'll probably never get the credit, but I was in the building and I let them know that shit wasn't good enough for me.
No, yeah, like that's the kind of friendship that I respect. Like, you know, just having a good time, chopping it up, you know, giving some shit where it needs to be. And like, look, I mean, I know like this season there was plenty of shit to be said. This is, you know, notably like you've gotten really popular over the last few weeks just because of what you've been doing around the team. And of course, you know, that sour end to the season, like you gained a lot of notoriety and popularity within Twitter, and especially the Mavericks Twitter. I guess, you know, one thing that, you know, we talked more off air was that last sort of 2 games or the sort of night that you had with the Slovenians. I guess if you want to talk about that, you know, now that we're recording and everything, I think it'd be perfect to do so. So
Yeah. So I would say the last 3 games of the Mavericks season, which is a 5-day span, was maybe some of the wildest 5 days of my entire life. Like just so much fun and just so incredible. But just before we get there, I want to go back a little further. When I was just on Mavs Twitter, some back and forth stuff, I did end up changing my name on Twitter to Fire Mark Cuban after yelling at it a couple games and having some fun with it. And then last season in the playoffs, when they went down 2-0 0-2 to the Suns, I don't know why, and I just said, fuck it. I'm wearing my Dinwiddie jersey backwards to game 3. Like, I'm wearing it backwards. I don't know why, but the energy is shit, and I want to be part of shifting the energy in this series, and I'm just going to rock it backwards because for some reason that feels like the right thing to do, right? So I did it in game 3, did it in game 4, and some people kind of saw it on Twitter, or like I met some people at the game that then followed me or whatever, and like I got few followers then and just had a good time with it. Ended up selling my 2 season tickets and buying a ticket like 4 rows behind the Mavs bench for game 6 of the series against the Suns, and was down there with the backwards Dinwiddie, and a bunch of people saw it on TV because I'm right there. And so I actually wore it backwards to all 3 games in that series. And again, did I play a part? I mean, of course I did. I rocked the Dinwiddie backwards to 3 games, including 4 rows behind the bench. Like that series needed to shift. And I had a lot of fun, obviously, going and raging and having a good time at all 3 of those games, right? So this year, I yelled fire Mark Cuban at a game, which is against the Heat on a Friday night. Right. And I was there with a buddy. And this is probably the most aggressive I had been at this point, as far as 2 or 3 times a quarter. I wait till they're shooting free throws and it gets quiet. And I try not to do it when the Mavs are in the middle of a free throw, but sometimes that's the quietest that it is. Right. but I just find maybe 2 or 3 times a quarter where like the level's just perfect. And I could like, I don't know, man, because I've been at so many games. I just like, I could hear the hum and I just know exactly when to let one go. Right. So so at that game, I did it 2 or 3 times a quarter. There was a guy there that was not happy with it. There was another guy that was visibly upset and told me 3 times that I can't fire the owner. And then there was a guy that clearly didn't like it and told security. That was the first time I met Jason, the head of security. And they told me, you cannot say fire Mark Cuban. You can't yell that at the game. This guy said that he doesn't like it and that you're disturbing him. Right. And I was like, okay, like whatever. No big deal. Up to that point, I had people behind me in my section that were just, a lot of people were laughing every time I did it. And like, we're all having a good time. But I do yell it pretty damn loud sometimes. And I know it probably feels a little negative to some people, right? When I yell it. But this guy clearly didn't like it. My friend kind of got into it with him and was like, oh, you told on us, called him a bitch. And I'm like, dude, I'm in my 40s, man. Like, we're not getting into it with people at the game, buddy. You know, he's in his 40s too. And I'm just like, no. That's not the energy that we're trying to be on. But like, he was taunting us a little bit, man, after we had to go back to our actual seats and walk by. And so like, that was the first time I talked to Jason from security. Okay. A couple days later, I show up to the game. I sold my 2 tickets and I bought a ticket 8 rows behind Cuban. And this is when they played the Wizards. This is the game that started the Spencer Dinwiddie Kuzma beef, right? That was, oh gosh, that game. That still just irritates me. That was one of the games where J Kidd just shit the bed, final possession.
Yeah,
like
we were there.
That was even the one where Luka tried to pass it to Spencer twice, right? 2 plays in a row, tried to do the exact same play. That's that game that I'm 8 rows behind Cuban. Okay. So I get in there, and that game I went to by myself because I sold my 2. I think it's a weeknight, right?
It was.
Maybe
we were there.
Tuesday,
Yeah.
right? So I got a beanie on, I got glasses on. I'm in the Matrix, man. Like I'm having such a good time. I'm there, and I'm just kind of, you know what I mean? The music's going for the pregame. I'm doing my thing, having fun, and they put me on the Jumbotron, right? What they didn't know is that I had a sign in my pocket folded up that said "Fire Mark Cuban," right? So I get it, and look, I got this one. It's basically like this, right?
Yeah.
So I unfold it while I'm on the Jumbotron, and it says "Fire Mark Cuban" though, and I get it on the Jumbotron for like half a second before the feed cuts away. This is like right at the start of the game, right? Within about 45 seconds, I have 3 security guards standing next to me, like aggressively being like, give me the sign, give me the sign. I had multiple, like I had 2 different ones, and they both had stuff on front and back. And I actually gave them the wrong one. And they were like, I think he had another one. It's in his back pocket. And I was like, whoa. So they took both my signs and said, you can't do that. Your sign's too big. It can't say Fire Mark Cuban. And I'm like, what did I do? Why can't it say that? And they're like, nope. Boom. So I was like, all right, well, I'm definitely going to yell that shit. You know what I mean? Like, so 8 rows behind the bench. This may be like 5 minutes into the game. That hum, I hear the hum that tells me it's my time, right? Where it's just super low volume. And I just stand up, fire Mark Cuban. Everybody on the bench, Mark Cuban, everybody can hear me where I'm at, right? Now it's like 20 seconds, 3 security guards in my face being like, dude, you can't say that. They give me, damn it, I wish I had it, man. They gave me like a warning card. I call it a yellow card, and it says something about fan conduct. And he's like, if I got to give you another one of these, if I got to talk to you again, we're going to kick you out of the game. And I was like, whoa. And I asked him, I said, can I yell other stuff? Right? I won't yell that. Can I yell other stuff? And they said, yeah, but you better not yell that. Right? So next time I heard the hum, next time it got low, I stood up, Stein Christian Wood, super loud. Right? Next time I do it, this is when they're not playing Jaden Hardy. Put in Hardy, like so loud, everybody hears it, right? Nobody in my section's complaining, nobody's saying anything. They actually let me go with all that stuff. I did the signed Christian Wood stuff a bunch, But then in the fourth quarter, 2 different times I got in a sell the team, sell the team. Okay, yeah. So that game was wild. That game was a lot of fun. Getting the Fire Mark Cuban sign on the jumbotron definitely helped me get some more followers on Twitter. And it's fun interacting with people on Twitter. It's fun to get some sort of feedback and engagement. And so I definitely enjoy that. I don't know, like some people just think that, I yell at games for attention or like that it's some sort of thing like that. But a lot of the attention is negative, right? I mean, I guess that's still attention, but like, I don't have in my mind, like I'm going to do this and get attention, right? I'm just there having fun. And sometimes it does bring attention to me and I enjoy it when it does. But like, that's not my motive. That's not why I'm doing it, is to try to be like, oh, let me get followers, right? Or like, let me get known, or I want people to see me. Like, I'm just there enjoying NBA basketball, right? And this is the way I express myself, and this is the way I enjoy it. So that game, the next game I went with my 3 British friends, and super cool guys. They love to drink and have fun. We snuck down to the 5th row behind, right where Nico sits. So Nico's like 2 rows in front of us. I see security eyeballing me. I'm like, shit, right? Like, I think at this point now they know who I am. I stand up in the first quarter and yell fire Mark Cuban 1 time, escorted out of my seat, checked our tickets, and we were in our wrong seats. I had my 2 season tickets, which are lower. And then they had 2 singles seats, which were actually pretty good in different spots. And they made them go to their seats, but I begged them. I mean, like, I'm super nice when security comes and talks to me. I'm just cool. I'm just like, hey, I'm just having a good time. Like, I'm not getting combative and like starting to get in like yelling matches with security. I'm just super chill, keep my calm, just say, hey, I'm here to have a good time. I don't think I'm breaking any rules. So I beg them, like, please don't kick my friends out. They'll go back to their seats, but you can go ahead and kick me out. Like, I get it. They had warned me a couple of times. They told me not to do it anymore. So I kind of had it coming a little bit, I guess, getting kicked out of that game, right? Yeah. So fast forward to Wednesday, April 5th. For like 2 weeks, I got it in my head, like, I'm going to get people to chant fire Jason Kidd at the game, right? And so I started this stupid thing, probably spammed too many comments. I think Dalton Trigg, I think it was Dalton, blocked me and then unblocked me because I apologized or something. It was just like, sorry, man. Like, I probably did throw it in your comments too many times, but I really was convinced I was going to get people in the arena to chant fire Jason Kidd with me during the game. Fire Jason Kidd, fire Jason Kidd, right? Nobody was doing it with me. Okay. So, but I was saying like, hey, April 5th is fire Jason Kidd Day. Like, it's a revolution. It's a grassroots movement. Like, we got to do this together. Right. And I probably went too far with the bit, and it was fun. And I really enjoyed it, but like, I didn't really get anybody to go with me. So I show up to that game with this shirt on. Okay. My buddy, Alex in receiving, his wife made this for me, and I love it. And I think it's a lot of fun. So I wear it to the game, and I have 4 signs in my pockets ready to go that all say fire Jason Kidd, right? My kids helped color in the letters on this one. So we're having fun with them. I posted a picture on Twitter of one of my kids coloring one of the letters in, and it got a lot of love. A lot of people liked that one. It was pretty good. Yeah. So I go there with this shirt on. They have this event before the game, Sneak Easy, where it's like this sneaker experience. It's a private event. If you're a season ticket holder, you can get, actually, no, if you just had a ticket to the game, you could buy for $40 to go to Sneak Easy. And it's like, it's 2 hours before the game. It's down by where they come in, like where you see JaVale McGee trying to hype the team up, like in the pre-tunnel. Yeah. Like, that's where it curved up against. And it was nice, dude. It was a super cool event. So I didn't wear this into the arena. I had the jersey covering it, right? I had the red Luka covering it. So I get in there to the event, and now I'm rocking the shirt and I'm wearing the red Luka like a cape. And then they had some little picture thing where you could take a picture, and I got one of my signs out. And then 5 minutes later, got a tap from security, right? It's Jason again, head of security, says, hey, man, this is a private event. and they don't want you here at a private event with that shirt on. And I said, hey, that actually makes a lot of sense. I understand it's a private event, and if they're not feeling it, I'll happily put the jersey back on and I'll just go back to the event. So he goes and talks to the lady that's running the event, and she says, cool. So they let me back in the event with the Luka jersey on, hung out and saw all these badass shoes, like probably like 100 different shoes, all these different collections. I'm not a sneaker guy, but it was a badass event. And another cool thing that the Mavericks have done as part of like perks or being a ticket holder, right?
Yeah.
But they did tell me if I showed the shirt again, I was going to get kicked out of the event, right? So I'm up in the 300s though, because I sold my 2 tickets. I wasn't going to go to the game until I started the revolution. Went to the game, but I had a single ticket in the 300s. And I got up to my seat and I was like, nobody's going to chant with me up here. Like the energy's not right. Like, it's not going to happen. So at halftime, I'm on Pick, which is a great site. And I found a $30 ticket, 6-7 rows behind the Mavs bench, right? Was like, oh my gosh, love it. For $32, I think, out the door. At halftime, I go down. It's probably like 3-4 minutes into the third quarter. I get to my seat and I sit down and I'm still rocking the cape and the shirt. I didn't say a word. I didn't yell anything. I didn't make one sound. 10 minutes in my seat, tap on the shoulder. Now, I'll tell you this. When I first got to my seat, I did see 3 security guards looking at my shirt. They noticed it. And I saw 2 of them talking to each other and almost pointing. And I was like, they're definitely talking about me. They're looking at me. It's a little awkward, right? But I don't say a word. Tap on the shoulder, security guard up to the tunnel, says, hey, we already told you about that shirt. And I said, no, that was just for the private event. Nobody said anything about the game. And they're like, is this even your seat? And I felt so good showing them my $30 ticket. They couldn't see it was $30, but that was my actual seat. And I was like, yes, this is my seat. And they made me wait 5 minutes. And the security guard was being a little combative, like, no, we told you. And I said, bro, when Jason gets here, he'll tell you what happened, right? And he's like, no, they told you. And I said, all right. So Jason gets there and Jason agrees with me. And he's been cool through the whole thing, man. Like, he's not overly aggressive. He understands I'm probably not actually breaking any rules, but they said same thing, man. If you want to stay here, you got to put the jersey over it. So they did not let me rock it. They made me cover it up or threatened to kick me out. So Kyrie went for 14 or 19 points in the fourth. That was one of the most electric games of the season. You guys were there, right? You said?
Yeah.
We were, yeah.
That was one of the most electric games of the season in the fourth. The energy in there made you feel a little something from late season last year. Like, it was hype on that game. And then the next day I did go on 105.3 The Fan. The dude from MFFL that's got like 100,000 followers. He took a picture of me at the game before security talked to me. He posted it on his account and he tagged me in the comment. And then 105.3 The Fan called me and I got to be on their morning show the next day talking about the shirt a little bit. So that was cool. But fast forward to Friday night. Wake up Friday, go to work, eventually see that they're going to sit all of the players. All of the players are going to sit for the Mavericks. They've given up. And it's so confusing. Like, yes, I know OKC had won a game, but like the way they played on Wednesday, the energy in the building, Kyrie going off in the fourth, and then they sit everybody on Friday, even though I get that they're probably not going to get in, but it just seemed like weird timing. And it seemed like, why didn't they do it on Wednesday? Like,
Yeah.
I just don't understand.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then come to find out Luka is only going to play the first because it's Slovenia night. And I was like, you gotta be shitting me, dude. Like, I bet you there's people that came from Slovenia just to see this game. Okay. Before the game, they had a thing for season ticket holders called Chalk Talk. Chalk Talk, I went to one earlier this year. It's like 200 season ticket holders up in a room that's near some of the Admiral suites. And they sit you in there. And the first one was Chris Arnold. Chris Arnold was there for like 45 minutes, told some amazing stories, talked about being at the Tyson Holyfield where Tyson bit the air and he was there covering it as a journalist, or as a radio guy or whatever. Great time. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. So they had one for Nico Harrison, right? We had signed up a couple weeks ago, had 2 tickets to go see Nico Harrison talk for 30, 45 minutes at Chalk Talk, right? They do it on Friday, the day the team quit, the day they're playing Luka, only the first quarter. 5 minutes before Chalk Talk started, I'm in like the fourth row, and Chris Arnold comes out with Nico Harrison. But 5 minutes before that, the video got released of Jay Kidd throwing the organization under the bus and saying the organization has decided, they've made a decision, we have to go with it, the players aren't happy. The same press conference that got them fined for $750,000. That video got released on Twitter 5 minutes before Nico got up in front of 200 season ticket holders and did Chalk Talk. And this man, Nico Harrison, spent 30 to 45 minutes talking about how smart and how successful he is, and how when Mark Cuban hired him, it was such a whirlwind and he really didn't think about anything and it happened so fast. And they sat there and reminisced about the Western Conference Finals and then lightly brushed off this season as if like, we tried. We'll be back next year. Don't you guys worry. And then didn't take any questions and walked out. And I walked out of that like I wanted to say something so bad. I had to bite my tongue the entire time. I was trying to give a couple of these, just trying to look disgusted, like trying to be like, Nico, I see you, buddy. Like, this shit is not good enough, bro. And I can't tell you that right now, but you and I both know this is shit, right? And I don't know if he got that, but I think he felt a little like, that's why he didn't answer any questions. They said he was going to. I can't believe they still did the Chalk Talk. Like, I would have canceled that shit the day that the team quit. So we get out of that. I hop on a Twitter Spaces because I just have to rant. My wife's with me. I pull her into the family bathroom and I rant on a Mavs Spaces that had like 25 people in it, and just ranted about how livid I was to have to sit and listen to Nico for the 30, 40 minutes that I did, right? We get out of the bathroom and we're walking. I'm just telling my wife, like, I bet you there's people that came all the way from Slovenia just to see this game. And I see immediately I see these 10 guys in hats, and they all have Slovenia hats. And I just beeline straight for them. Something tells me I got to go talk to these guys. And we end up talking to them, and they say, yes, we flew 15 hours from Slovenia just to come see Luka Doncic play basketball. And I said, oh my gosh, we start meeting. We talk for 5-10 minutes. We get this picture with them. And then these are the hats that they had on.
Hey.
So there's 10 guys from Slovenia. One of these guys, it's his first time in America. And a lot of the guys, they said the only other time they were in America was when they went to Miami to see Luka versus Goran Dragic. I'm not pronouncing that right, but Goran versus Luka, because he's from Slovenia too.
Yeah.
He said they had like 3,000 people from Slovenia at that game. To give you some context, I didn't know this until now, but Slovenia has like 2 million people.
Mm-hmm.
So for context, DFW, I looked it up, is 6.5 million. So like, just to kind of think about that, right? So I'm like, these guys are awesome. We get a huge picture, me and my wife with them. I go to my seat. I'm in my seat for 5 minutes, tap on the shoulder, right? Because I had got talked to about the shirt on Wednesday. This is 2 days later, and it's a lady I don't recognize, and I don't see security with her. She says, can I talk to you in the tunnel for a few minutes? I go up there, and she is the vice president of guest experience for the Dallas Mavericks. And I'm looking around, like, every time security has talked to me, there's been a Dallas PD with them, which is a little bit intimidating. I think they do that on purpose, maybe. I'm sure it's a safety measure, right? There's usually multiple security guards there. But with this, it was just her. And we're standing in the tunnel, and she has something in her hand with some highlighted stuff on it. And I'm like, oh shit, she's about to serve me with some kind of papers, like terminating my season tickets, or like, I'm like, she's about to hand me something that's like, here's a decision we've made. But it wasn't. It was just some code of conduct highlighted. Gina is her name. I don't remember her last name, but we had a 10-minute conversation. I explained to her my love of NBA basketball, of taking my kids to games, of sharing it with my family, of being in Dallas. And we talked for a good 10 minutes. And at the end of it, she gives me her business card, her cell phone, and says, hey, if there's anything else that you need or that happens at the game, just know you have me as a contact. And she's like, but just to let you know, here's what we think what rule you're breaking. And it's that I'm disturbing the game and or the fans around me. Something to that extent. And I told her, I said, I don't agree with you. I don't think I'm breaking that rule, but I'm just here with my wife tonight. We just want to have a good time. I'm not yelling anything at anybody. When I go with my wife or the kids, I'm just there as a fan. I don't really say, well, I mean, I did this last game, but I'm saying for the most part, right?
Yeah.
Like that was a special day. So 10 minutes we talk. I go back to my seat. We go enjoy the game. And I tell my wife, like, damn, we got to hang out with the Slovenians again. Like, they told me what section they're in. I know that section. And because of the hats, I see them. They're on the opposite behind the basket. I'm behind the basket in 124. They're over in 113 on the other side. And I see them. I'm like, I'm going to go talk to them. So me and her go back, talk to them, have a beer with them. And I said, guys, what are you doing after the game? Are you guys just going out for drinks? Can we join you? Like, just invited ourselves along with these guys, right? And I was like, looking at my wife, something about it, I just knew it was special. I knew it was special. And these guys flew 15 hours and were flying back on Monday. So this is a Friday night. They went to the Stars game the next day. But I'm like, we got to party with these guys tonight, right? Your mom's watching the kids. Like, let's just go out and have fun. So we end up going to the bar that's right there by American Airlines. It's called Chop Shop. That's right there. We're partying with the Slovenians. We are having a really good time. I'm not going to be able to drive. Wifey's going to have to be designated driver for sure. And at the bar, I see Mark Followill, right? The guy that does the TV on Bally's. He's the play-by-play guy. He does the show with Derek Harper, right? Everybody loves Mark Followill. Great guy, right? And like, I didn't know much about him, but I could tell that like people liked him, right? In Dallas. I see him there, and he's there with the other guy. I think his name is Brian Damaris.
Yeah.
And he's on like the halftime show. He's there with them, but I don't recognize him at first. I'm like, is that a season ticket holder? I think I embarrassed myself later, and I was like, you look familiar. I was like, are you a season ticket holder? And he was like, no, I'm on the TV, right? This is after we've already met Mark, right? So the Slovenians don't know who Mark Followill is, right? So I'm like, I explained to them, this is Mark Followill. He's on the TV. This guy's awesome. I'm going to introduce you guys. I've never met Mark, but I was just like, we're partying, and this sounds like a lot of fun to introduce Mark to the Slovenians. So I have to wait because a lot of people are saying hi to him. And I see my moment, and I introduce him, and I say, Mark, these guys flew 15 hours. And Mark just interrupts my introduction and says, did you guys fly to Istanbul? And then from Istanbul to Dallas? And he starts talking to these guys. We end up partying with Mark Followill for like an hour and a half, like taking drinks. Like the Slovenian toast is like, Opa! And everybody's wearing hats. And we're just raging with Mark Followill and the Slovenians till 2 a.m. Mark left at like 1:30. But like till 2 a.m, we shut the bar down and just had a blast. And I was like, guys, what are you doing the rest of the weekend? Can I hang out with you some more? Right? Like, invited myself. But these guys are great. But the craziest thing is Mark Followill knew so much about Slovenia, like has been there, knew some words, knew some of the regions, and had such a special time with the Slovenians and Mark. And they connected. I wasn't even talking to Mark or really the Slovenians very much for the rest of the night because Mark and them were having such a beautiful conversation. And I kept looking at my wife like I can't believe I'm here for this. Like, what is happening right now? Okay. Next morning, I try to tag Mark in some Twitter stuff. And I realized that Mark has me blocked. And I was like, oh shit. He didn't know who I was. At no point did I even think like, oh, I should tell him that I'm the Fire Jason Kidd guy or the Fire Mark Cuban guy. I was just like, this is badass. We're all partying. The Slovenians are here. My wife is here. We're having such a good time. I don't need to bring that up. That's not the type of energy that was on, right? So Mark and them had such a special time. I knew that it elevated their experience. They were so happy to bump into him. It was so magical for them. At the end of the night, they were like, I can't believe we got to talk to that guy. I can't believe he knew so much about our country. And then I go to tag Mark, I'm blocked. Somehow I put something up there. Mark figured out that I was who I was at this point and that I was blocked. And now I'm like, oh shit, I'm blocked, right? So like we end up going to the game. I hung out with them for UFC Saturday night, even though they weren't watching UFC, but I hung out with the Slovenians for like 3-4 hours that night. And then on Sunday, it was Easter Sunday. They were going to go to Houston. And I said, don't go to Houston, guys. That's a long ass drive. I said, go to the Stockyards in Fort Worth if you want like real deal Texas experience, right? But they couldn't go to the Stockyards because it was Easter and everything was closed. And I talked these guys into going to the game with me on Sunday. They had Fan Appreciation Day, 2-hour party out in front of American Airlines Center. My wife, my kids were getting free face paint. I'm drinking with the Slovenians. We're having a great time. We go to the game. After the game, I tell my wife, I got to hang out with these guys. So she takes the kids home. I'm partying with the Slovenians all day Sunday now because the game was like a 2:30 start, I think. Yeah. So we're out on the patio at Chop Shop. And this is, an hour or two after the game. And who do we see walking by? Mark Followill, fresh from his post-game show in a beautiful suit. And I just yell out, guys, it's Mark. And he turns around thinking like it's just a random fan. And then he recognizes the Slovenians, right? And he lights up and he comes over. And at this point now, I see him again. He knows who I am and he knows that I'm blocked. And I know that I'm blocked. So he kind of says something about it. And then we just start talking about other stuff. But he ended up saying like, hey, guys, I got to go. But the Slovenians talked him into having 2 shots out there and doing the, whoa. So we did that again after doing it 10 times on Friday. And for 15 minutes, he talked to the guys again, gave his time. And then 2 different times when he first walked up and right before he left, he had some very kind things to say about me and just said, hey, I appreciate Chris showing you guys a good time and having fun with you guys. And I know you were disappointed about Luka. And it was just this really cool moment for me because I don't expect Mark Followill to unblock me. He probably had me blocked for a reason. Yeah. And somebody actually tagged him in some stuff that I put. And he was like, hey, we did have a great time, but I don't want to associate or I don't want to interact with negative accounts on Twitter. I respect that. I respect what Mark Followill does. He was so much fun to hang out with. He was so cool to the Slovenians. He had some really nice things to say about me and shook my hand twice on Sunday. I don't expect him to unblock me, but it was a special moment for me to know that I'm not on just some negative shit all the time, right? I think bumping into these guys was meant to be. But these guys, I think their weekend was better because they ran into my wife and I, right? I think that's just a fact. I didn't do it that wasn't my reason for doing it. Mark said a couple times oh, you showed him hospitality. I wasn't like, oh, let me show these guys a good time in Dallas. It was just selfish. I was like, holy shit, we should party with these guys, honey. These guys look like a lot of fun, right? They gave me this hat. So they had 10 guys with 10 hats. They bought them at the airport on the way out. They only left with 8 hats. I got one and Mark Followill has the other one. And I got some pictures with it. Just so good. It was one of the wildest, just purest, beautiful experiences of my life to hang out and see all this crazy shit happen over a 5-day period, from the shirt all the way to seeing Mark a second time coming out of Chop Shop, man, and just having that moment, right? So I took my red Luka jersey and I took it off and I gave it to Aliaj. Aliaj, 27 years old, hung out with him all weekend, him and his guys. They're all from the same village originally, which is population 370. Beautiful people. Yeah. Beautiful people. They're only 20, 30 minutes outside the capital. Maybe not even that far. They speak good English, broken English, but you can understand them. Just beautiful people that love Luka, that love their country. And I had a blast with these guys, man. It was so special to me and to my wife. So I gave Aliaj, 27 years old, his first time in the U.S., right? Still lives at home with his parents. I'm sure in his village, it's common until you get married, right? Aliaj, man, just what an awesome guy this was. I gave him the red Luka jersey and I said, I'm giving this to you, but it's just a loan. I'm going to come back to Slovenia and get it. because during the course of hanging out with them, they said, you got to come see us in Slovenia. One of the guys owns a bar in the capital, a bar and a restaurant. And he said, we will throw a party for you. Aliaj said his mom will cook for us like a Slovenian meal. He sent me pictures of their village, like drone pictures, just a couple of days ago that I posted on Twitter. Beautiful village in Slovenia. And my wife and I had some Marriott points that we were gifted for our 10-year anniversary, which is next year. We just celebrated 9 years. Right? I love you, honey.
Congratulations.
We just celebrated 9. Next year, we looked up the Marriott points and we can use them in Slovenia. Like there's places in Slovenia where we can use those points. And I never thought about going to Slovenia ever. Never occurred to me until I met these guys. And the first night I met them, wifey was looking up hotels in Slovenia, right? So now it's on my bucket list to go visit these guys and to get my red Luka jersey back, because we just had such a connection. I told you their weekend was better because they bumped into us, but my weekend was exponentially better because I bumped into them. You know what I mean? Yeah. It felt like it was meant to be. There was a whole bunch of other shit going on at the same time, but to be able to party with those guys and connect with those guys is something that I will never forget for the rest of my life.
Yeah,
It sounds like a wonderful time. I know me and Will, we're sitting at a mere 20 years old and we don't have that kind of money to spend. But we would definitely love to go to Slovenia one time. But real quick, I guess before we wrap up this podcast, is there anything that you're planning on doing with the account? Because I know it's kind of becoming popular, it's kind of taking storm. Is there anything that you're planning on doing with the account? Are you planning on buying season tickets again? Because at this point, I assume you are.
I do have season tickets. If they lock you in March, they give you like a 15% discount on your season package, which is a nice little chunk. So I do have season tickets for next year. We actually, at the bar that same night on Sunday, we saw Gina at the bar with 3 other people. And one of the guys was the security guard that tapped me on the shoulder and had me come out when I had my shirt on. And I shit you not, I introduced them to the Slovenians. We did the whoop with them twice. The security guard that escorted me out in my shirt, and Gina, the VP of guest experience that talked to me before the game on Friday, we saw them at the bar. She's going to Slovenia next year for some trip. And I was able to introduce them and they exchanged Facebook info. So that was special. But anyways, I do have season tickets for next year. I have no plans for the account because it just happened and I wouldn't know what to do with a Twitter account. You know what I mean? As far as like, I just post I retweet a bunch of shit. I post a bunch of shit. I have fun on there, but like, I'm not like planning anything, right? I'm just on there having fun. Yeah. Right. So, I did the last game of the season, and I'll give you guys this last thing. The last minute of the game, I did boo them. I got a ticket 5 rows behind the bench for the last game of the season when we went with the Slovenians. And I was down there 5 rows behind CUBAN in the bench, and I was booing them for about 90 seconds straight. And nobody else was booing with me. And every player could hear me. Every coach could hear me. CUBAN could hear me. Tim Hardaway, when the game ended, he was turning his head and looking back and nodding like, okay. Like Tim Hardaway looked like he wanted to knock my teeth out, right? Like I booed for 90 seconds straight as loud as I could as they walked off the court their last game of the season. I don't know that I'll be on that energy next year. Who knows what next season brings? Yeah. But I'm going to have fun within my rights. I don't think I've broken any code of conduct rules at any time that I've been in American Airlines Center, right? I don't think I've done anything wrong. So I'm not trying to push the envelope, but sometimes I just get there. I don't know what next season holds, but I promise you, I don't think anybody has had more fun at American Airlines Center the last 2 seasons than me. I think I've had the most fun in the building for 2 seasons straight, even though I only went to like 15 games this year. Probably went to like 40 last year, including playoffs. I don't think anybody's having more fun than me. You know, maybe I'm getting too old and I need to slow it down a little bit. So I don't know what next year holds, but I do plan on being at games. I do plan on expressing myself in a bunch of different ways. A lot of time it depends on who I'm with. If I go to a game with somebody that I know is down for me to do some antics, I have fun and I do antics. If I'm there with my kids, my wife, a coworker that I know would be uncomfortable, I'm on good behavior, just enjoying the game, cheering, trying to have a high basketball IQ and see where coach is messing up over and over and over again with his rotations, with his out of bounds plays, with what he says in the media, with it not matching what happens on the court, being just like one of the worst coaches in the entire NBA, right? Who won coach of the year? Dude for Sacramento, Mike Brown?
Yeah,
Mike
Mike Brown.
Brown. Yeah.
Right? So they do rank coaches, don't they? Right?
Yeah.
If they literally ranked them from 1 to 32, J Kidd does not crack the top 25 on anybody's list in the NBA. Nobody, right? Just like such a bad, terrible coach. That energy, if he's the head coach next year, which it looks like all signs point to yes, I'm not going to lose my season ticket package. I'm not going to get kicked out of another game. I enjoy it too much. But I am going to still have some energy moving forward for the movement for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think every season is a new experience. So, I mean, man, I think you definitely stay within those parameters. But at the end of the day, like, let the energy take it where it lies, right? If the Mavs are back where they were this year and, however many games under 500 and just an abysmal experience closing to the season, you gotta match their energy. But if we have that sort of magical run like they did at the end of the season, the previous season, at the turn of the new year, then you got to match that energy as well, man. So I'm really excited to, see how the season unfolds, of course. And that's dope that you still renewed your season tickets and everything, man. We really enjoyed having you on today, Chris. It was a really fun podcast, man. You told some really cool stories. I would definitely like to bring you on at some point. We have a lot of downtime during the off season, especially when it gets into the sort of just the arid, dry time that August is, where there's just no NBA news cycling through. I'm sure we could bring you on, man, and you could tell one of your other stories or just look ahead to the season. Those fun podcasts nonetheless. Other than that, guys, you guys can follow Chris on Twitter at MVP Luca 77, or just search up Fire Jason Kidd, whatever. I'm sure y'all can find him over there. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at mainstream_Mavs. Make sure to like the YouTube. If you guys are listening on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Comment down below which one of your stories that Chris told today was your favorite. And other than that, if you guys are listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any of those other listening platforms out there, we're on almost every of them. Make sure to follow us, give us a good rating if you guys do enjoy the podcast. Other than that, we will catch you guys in the next one. We're going to be going every single day until we get done with these player profiles. We're going to be cranking out Jaden Hardy starting out tomorrow.
Yes.
And we're not going to miss a day. We're not skipping any beats over here, but otherwise, great podcast. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Mainstream Mavs signing out.
Thank you.